You ever had one of those days where you think, well, that's it, I've finally seen it all, and then your neighbor tries to steal your electricity in broad daylight, right under your security cameras, wearing a coat straight off a bargain rack and sunglasses big enough to host a family of birds? Yeah, that happened to me. And you know, when the smart meter on the side of my house started screaming through my phone with this ear-piercing alert, I already knew somebody was messing with my power. But nothing in my life prepared me for the circus about to unfold. Who in their right mind thinks they can just waltz up, tap into your breaker box, and then get this act like you're the one who should be grateful? But that's Karen logic for you. And I mean, logic never did pay her a visit, not even by accident. I tore outside, half expecting to find a fire or a burglar, but nope, it was Karen, rocking that cheap leopard coat, wielding wire cutters and barking into her phone like she was calling in backup from the League of Entitled Villains. There she was mid-felony, as if she just watched a how to commit a crime and blame your neighbor tutorial. And the moment our eyes met, she didn't even flinch. She had the audacity to tell me I should thank her for picking my house, since, you know, I probably didn't need all that electricity anyway. Before I could even process what kind of twilight zone I'd entered, my app pinged again. Police were already on their way because my breaker had been tampered with. At first I panicked. Then I realized finally actual evidence I'd only installed that meter because Karen had a history of borrowing my outdoor outlets for those never-happened parties, where my extension cords magically ended up in her backyard. So I squared my shoulders, walked over, and asked her what she thought she was doing with my electrical panel. She didn't miss a beat, rolled her eyes, like I'd interrupted her spa day, and snapped. The HOA shut off my power because of unpaid dues, and it's basically your fault for voting against my flamingo statue. Yeah. The inflatable flamingo debacle, she still held that grudge. And right then, police lights cut through the air, and for the first time, Karen's mask slipped. She dropped her cutters, her voice cracking into this Oscar-worthy performance about being the real victim. One hand to her chest, gasping that I had called the cops on her for just trying to survive. Honest to God, I've seen raccoons try to steal cable more discreetly. As I tried to explain to the officers, Karen butted in, insisting I'd locked her out of her breaker box. Meanwhile, mine has a lock my house number and is nowhere near her property. But she pointed at random screws and paint, saying they looked familiar, then swear to you, pointed at her shoes, claiming the colors matched the house, so it had to be hers. The officer just stared, like, "Ma'am, is your brain buffering?" Suddenly, my smart meter chimed again, beaming real-time footage of Karen snipping wires right to the officers. You'd think she'd back down, but no, she doubled down, claiming I'd hacked the meter. She demanded they arrest me for cyber crimes, told the cops I was a computer genius, out to dominate the neighborhood with my hacker powers. I barely kept it together, folks. The most technical thing I do is reset my Wi-Fi. But those officers weren't buying any of it. When they played back the video of her waltzing up, acting like Edward Scissorhands with my cables, Karen switched again, fake crying to someone on the phone, howling about being oppressed by technology. The officers asked her to hang up, then explained utility theft is a real crime and that she'd need to come with them. She shrieked about her hair appointment, and while making her grand exit, tripped over her own handbag, her sunglasses flying into my yard. I almost felt bad, until she pointed at me, blaming me for ruining her life and I guess her commitment to free power for all. The cops escorted her to their cruiser, and as she screamed about vengeance, I just watched, half relieved, half dreading what came next. Because with Karen, a police car is never the end, just an intermission. I walked back to my porch, sipped my coffee, hoping for a quiet moment, but my phone buzzed again. Power fluctuations near her property. No way she'd give up that easy. Moments later, a rusty van pulled up, 24/7 electrical services peeling off the side. Out steps a guy in overalls, a hat that says certified spelled wrong, and a face that screamed, "I've survived 3 electrocutions." Karen and her new expert slunk along my fence, whispering and squinting at my cables like they'd found buried treasure. I imagined the headlines, "Neighbor starts wildfire in botched power heist." So I strolled over, pretending to be polite, asking if they needed help. Karen hissed that I should mind my own business. She was taking back what's hers. I reminded her that the cops had literally just explained that's not her power. She scoffed, said she'd handle it privately because she doesn't believe in the government unless it's convenient. The electrician paled when I showed him the meter app, told him everything he touched was logged and sent to the utility company and police. Suddenly, he was missing the right tools, hopped in his van, and peeled out like he'd seen a ghost. But Karen wasn't done. She called me a cyberstalker, declared she'd report me to the HOA for having a smarter house than everyone else. I told her, be my guest. I could already picture the HOA's face when they heard why the police were here. Back inside, I watched my meter warnings kept popping up. Even with the electrician gone, someone was still monkeying with the lines. Then I heard a metallic clank, swearing, and saw flickering lights in her house. Karen was now DIYing with a barbecue fork. Sparks shot out. She screamed and blamed me for making her house dangerous. I tried explaining maybe don't poke live wires with kitchen tools. She called it a hate crime, stumbled around like a zombie, claiming I'd stolen light from her life. I called the utility company, told them my neighbor was committing war crimes against electricity. The utility tech showed up, and when he asked who caused the damage, Karen burst out blaming me, saying I was obsessed with electric control. The tech, unbothered, showed logs and footage of Karen's barbecue fork battle. He warned her next time the charges would be much worse. For the first time, Karen was quiet, but not beaten planning. She whispered to me with that dangerous glint, "If you think this is over, you don't know me." And I knew she was just getting started. Later, she taped angry manifestos all over my fence-red marker rants about how I was sabotaging her rights. She even staged a driveway protest, waving a battery-powered fan and shouting at passers-by about my evil monopoly. If you thought it ended there, you don't know Karen. Sooner back up arrived her sister Sharon, an even louder glitter-jacketed version toolbox in hand with kitchen utensils, of course. Sharon announced her 3 online interior design courses made her a home infrastructure expert. They tried to climb up and disconnect my smart meter, but police and the HOA board showed up just in time. Sharon hid the cheese grater. Karen sobbed about being punished for being popular, and the utility guy explained they almost fried both our houses. The HOA's Richard, always eager to add bureaucracy, suggested maybe I could hide my smart meter behind a decorative box so Karen wouldn't feel triggered. I asked if I should also hide the sky while I was at it. Even he had to laugh. By then, Karen was passing out flyers calling for a boycott of electricity tyrants. She staged a candlelight march at 8 p.m. But nobody turned off their lights except her and, hilariously, a stray cat that nearly set her sign on fire. Still, Karen pressed on. She filed complaints with everyone, HOA, the mayor, the news. She even created memes of my house as an electric fortress, hired her cousin Tommy, a mall kiosk legal expert, as her defense and demanded a full HOA trial. The day of the hearing, Karen entered in a sash labeled Community Defender, waving a stack of memes and ranting about my tyranny. I calmly presented footage of her with the barbecue fork and utility reports showing my smart meter had prevented fires. The HOA ruled in my favor, banned Karen from electrical systems, and predictably she accused everyone of corruption and stormed out. But the drama didn't end. She tried again this time with a neon orange extension cord and a portable battery, attempting to tap the utility cables with Tommy cheering her on. The police showed up for her 3rd arrest in 2 days. After that, I found a giant glittery energy freedom generator delivered to my porch, her idea of a threat. Later, she set up solar garden lights in the yard, and after a thunderstorm ruined those dreams, tried a wind turbine made from a wind chime, batteries, and duct tape. Naturally, it nearly set her house on fire. The local news even showed up. Karen ranted about toaster oppression, wore a colander helmet to block radiation waves, and collected a handful of signatures for her Ban Smart Meters petition. But she never stopped. One day, she dragged out her ultimate creation, 2 car batteries, a satellite dish, desk fans, a disco ball, her energy reclaimer, Mark I. She flicked it on, sparks flew, and right on cue. A lightning storm exploded overhead, frying her contraption and sending her running for cover, accusing me of weather control. The city inspector finally arrived and laid down the law banned from all electrical infrastructure, massive fines and police escort again. Neighbors cheered. Even Richard from the HOA admitted maybe, just maybe, the smart meter wasn't the problem after all. That night I stepped outside, rain finally gone. The neighborhood peaceful again. My meter quietly humming had survived the most bizarre siege you could imagine. I found a damp handwritten note on my porch. This is not the end, Kay. Even in defeat, Karen saw herself as the hero. And you know what? I believe her. She'll be back, maybe after some community service, maybe after a new batch of genius ideas. But my meter doesn't sleep, and if she tries again, there's one power she'll never steal: the power of consequences. So let me ask you this. Where's the line between standing up for yourself and letting the neighborhood spiral into chaos? Do you fight back every time, or do you just hope logic will finally win the day? Drop your wildest neighbor stories, your take on what real justice looks like, and hey, if you ever faced a Karen, tell me how you kept your lights on. Because in my neighborhood, you never know what's coming next.